On this particular video, I put all of my shroud lines on here, and everything is just fine. Now, if there is a problem, you can always pull on this little pigtail and that'll loosen the knot up, or you can pull it tight and adjust that back and forth so you can make it a little bit smaller, a little bit longer. So let's see how we're doing here. Now, one interesting thing about this knot is that it's very predictable. Namely, because you're using a large length when you're tying it, it's really easy to get that knot exactly perfect and get it to the exact length that you want. I put about a 3/8 inch little pigtail on it. So let's see how we're doing here. Oh, it looks pretty good. Okay, so I don't have any issues with this. This is caught up a little bit. Now we could probably play with this a little bit, but I think that looks just fine for the purposes that we want to do. Okay, so I'm going to now attach the Kevlar cord. Now this is the Kevlar cord that came with it. It's 2 feet long, which is my favorite length. On this end, I'm going to put a loop, just a standard overhand loop, sometimes called a fisherman's loop, and use this. Now this is what I use to attach to the eyelet, or you can use it to attach to the nose cone. It's much easier to use than trying to use a snap swivel. Now snap swivels I don't like using because the swivel plus the snap is about 2 inches long. That's 2 inches of metal. Makes it just much harder to pack. Also, when you do that, make it extremely tight. Also, when you do that, I found that swivels will sometimes catch the lines. So in order to attach this to something, and I think I've showed it before, is just simply put this through any loop, which is going to be the eyelet, and put the parachute through here and just pulls tight into a knot. So recovery systems, I like using knots. It makes them much easier to work with. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a slip knot on the Kevlar, and the Kevlar is going to have the slip knot going through our lines over here. Let's go back to where these were, and I think I was right about here. Okay, so we have them. And what's interesting is that we still pull this back and forth a little bit if we need to. So let's go ahead and make this our loop. I'll put the Kevlar cord through this. And I'm going to do what I did before, which is just simply put a simple knot in here. This Kevlar is very springy, and I've mentioned this many times. It just doesn't go where you want it to go because it's got so much springiness to it. But I'm going to tie the same knot that I did before. And here it is. I think you can see that. So I'm going to now tie this knot a little bit tighter. Just take it and really pull on it. And as indicated in the last video, you can pull this knot extremely tight, and it's not going to matter. And the reason is Kevlar slides real easily. So even though I just tied this knot as tight as I could possibly get it, it still slides real easily. This is really nice because all we have to do is pull our cords even again. Make sure that they're even, and just pull this tight, and there we go. We're all done. So now we've attached it. So now what we need to do, and this step I'm going to do off camera as well, put a little touch of CA glue here. I'm going to also trim the pigtail from this because I don't want it to get caught. A tiny drop of CA glue here. And this is tight. It's going to hold tight. And I will probably trim this pigtail just a little bit as well. And for each of the 6 shroud lines, a very tiny drop of CA glue in the knot and also onto the paper square. And that will hold everything in place. Now, what I like to do is I like to open this up and let it dry overnight. This needs to get extremely dry. If you try to wrap it all up, you're going to glue your parachute together because the CA is somehow going to have that little spot of wet glue, and you're just end up with a really nice plastic block. I don't know what you can use that for, but it certainly is not going to help us much. So, okay, go ahead and glue these things together. A drop of CA there, a drop of CA there, and 6 drops of CAs on the squares. And then the next video, we're going to start looking at how do we make this little spotting streamer. It's a really interesting little streamer. It does not provide drag, but you will be able to see this. If this is 25 feet long, I think I'm going to make this 30 feet long. When you take that rocket, you put a D engine in it, it's going to be really high. And that's the plan, is to put that rocket up as high as I can, but I want to get my rocket back. So that's the whole idea of model rocket engineering, is that we want to make changes, and we want to change things in a way that we can do different types of use cases, different types of scenarios. Oh, by the way, one thing I will add is that Sunday, which is 2 days from now, It's supposed to be our polar bear launch, where we go out in the field, we start launching, and the weather's going to be a high of 8 degrees with a 15-degree below zero wind chill. I kind of asked our launch control officer, I said, do you really want to go out and fly in that weather? Not only is that cold dangerous, but also obviously a wind chill that's 23 degrees lower than the temperature. That's extremely windy, so it's going to be almost impossible to fly rockets anyway. So we're going to bump that out to next week, so that gives me more time to build more rockets, build parachutes, and build some cool stuff. So this is model rocket engineering. Let's build stuff that works and try to build stuff that improves how things do work.